Be back in action on Instagram.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Make sure I grab my phone. Hold on 1 second. All right.
All right. Well, welcome back. We'll wait for some people to join. We're doing a nice sourcing session tonight, so we'll cover how we find brands in SmartScout, identify what a winning brand looks like, and we will also develop an outreach strategy around that brand. Yeah. So
And every outreach strategy is different. Like depends on the brand that we're looking at. And so just like tailoring an approach to the brand is super important too, because obviously not every brand is the same.
Right. Speaking of brands and every brand not being the same, why don't you give us the quick high level overview of your weekend?
Yeah. I didn't go to the beach this weekend actually. I flew out to go see a brand over the weekend, and you talk about some brand owners just want to do things a little differently, and personal connections are huge for this brand owner, and so been working with them for a while now, about a year, 2 years, and met multiple times, but flew out across the country. Actually recorded a vlog about it that'll probably be posted to the YouTube at some point. But basically, to talk exclusivity, and walked away with a contract. So it's just like we talk about going above and beyond with things, like being willing to do things. Obviously, you're not going to fly out there, on the first call, but understanding like it gets to a point where I always say like doing things that Amazon sellers won't do, so you can close accounts that other Amazon sellers can't close. And so had a nice, productive trip, and came back with a contract, and can't beat that. I was exhausted on Monday though. I'll tell you that. I was
Yeah.
out of it because I just did all day travel, and I don't know, slept half the day.
I was saying to somebody, I don't know, this week, like Amazon Wholesale, whether it's distributors or brands, I think brands even more so, but we're in the relationship business, and when you're in the relationship business, there's opportunity because you don't know what a relationship can lead to. We talk about it all the time. It's like going out on a whim, putting yourself out there, going above and beyond, doing something that might not seem like it has a tangible benefit or really a monetary benefit to you in the moment, but doing something to build a relationship for, you know, long term, right? And how do you do that? Well, you provide value from day one, and you just be a person from day
Mhm.
one, because down the line, you do not know what is going to manifest of that relationship.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, we were, went out to dinner, went out to lunch. We wound up going to like local parks and areas, and like we were looking at some native stuff, and like the native, like the guy likes to fish, and so we were looking at like the native fish in the area. He was showing me some different things. So I feel like when you start brand direct wholesale, you don't expect something to. You're never like, yeah, I'm gonna find myself, you know, 2,000 miles away looking at fish in a pond, with a brand
With the
owner.
brand owner.
Yeah, but it's it happens, and it's just because, like you said, it's a person, so you never know how things are going to manifest. It's interesting, but hey,
Yeah.
I enjoy that. I really do. Like you do too. I know that. Like just those types of experiences. Um, it's just it one, it takes away from the monotony of sitting behind your computer just dialing, brands. But two, it's like that's the fun stuff. That's the exhilarating stuff that I don't know, just makes the business worthwhile, I think, for me personally.
Yeah, well, it adds a big element to the fulfillment aspect of the business, not product fulfillment, personal fulfillment. It really adds an element there. And, obviously we're all in this to make money, probably all in this to make a lot of money, but there's something to be said for relationships in this business. I think it's a little bit unique. You deal with a lot of different personalities, and you could have quite rewarding relationships. You could also have relationships that go bad too. So it can go both ways. That's what happens when you deal with people.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the reality. But I think in most cases, it's like if anyone's ever worked a retail job, 99% of the customers that you get in there, I feel like are pretty good. And then you have 1% that just make up for, they're bad enough to make up for the other 99%. So I feel like it's the same thing. Most brands that you deal with are good, but we've had our fair share of brand owners that it's just not someone you want to work with long term, but it's a minority.
Right. Yeah. Well, in order to ever get to a brand exclusive or even get to a brand direct wholesale account, it starts with step number one. And step number one is sourcing the right kinds of brands. So that's really what we're going to segue into here and cover is how we are finding what are the parameters that we are looking at to find these winning brands and really have just an abundance of brands that, it's just a never ending list, right? Of brands that we're contacting, so it's like a lot of people's challenge is how to find profitable brands, how to find winning brands, how to find brands that are even never mind receptive, but at least somewhat receptive to the whole Amazon e-commerce scene. So we're going to dive into all that here in just a second. Let's just answer Gianni's question real quick. If the brand turns me down, can I still get their product from distributors?
Yeah, I mean, you can absolutely see if you can source the product through a distributor. Just make sure that they're authorized. It might be a way to segue eventually back into the brand because the distributor already has a good relationship with them. So I'd give it a shot as long as they're authorized by the brand.
How do you confirm that they're authorized by the brand?
Yeah, I mean, you can ask the brand for one. And then you also want to make sure that they're able to provide documentation. Is a second thing, but you could ask the brand directly for a list of authorized distributors or something of that nature.
Right. Let me dive into my screen here.
Yeah, and we do that while you're diving into the screen share. I mean, we do that a lot. I think it's always an option if you get turned down by a brand. It also might be a brand that is too large, and that's why they're not opening a direct account with you and directing you to a distributor. So that might be, again, looking at the sourcing criteria, the brands that you're sourcing might be something to consider.
Can you see my screen okay?
Yeah, you're good to go there.
Okay. So I have SmartScout up. I also have Amazon up here, and we will toggle between the two. So first thing we're doing in SmartScout, right? And just anybody joining, maybe, you haven't sourced with us yet. We use SmartScout to streamline our process. So when we are on Amazon as a customer, you can reverse source, you can go into category deep dives and go deep within Amazon's catalog in order to, find those niche related products, because on Amazon's front page, they're going to bombard you with, the number one best sellers, all the products that Amazon is on. And what SmartScout allows us to do is that it allows us to set these preset filters that meet that small to medium sized brand range. And how do we quantify that? We quantify it by revenue. So I'm going to go over here to my filter tab. And the first thing you're going to do when you're in SmartScout is click on the brands tab. And then next you can click on filters. And from here, we can actually create ourselves, a little bit of a filter here and go ahead and apply that. So basically, we will set a pretty general filter. And you can play with this, right? So it's not something that's set in stone. So for a monthly revenue range, this is the first thing I'm going to target. What would you say on the low to high end for a monthly revenue range?
Yeah, I mean, I usually like probably about 20,000. On the low end, just because you got to figure monthly revenue versus the monthly profit on the account, and then high end. I mean, we can go to maybe 200,000 or something like that. Anything, anything above 200, 250, you start to get into some pretty big brands. Not to say that you can't find a lot of success with that, but just for a beginner, I think this is a good, range.
And are you setting a category filter at all?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, we're category agnostic, so it's not really setting a filter with that. The only thing that sometimes, if we have the option to, um, we can't really go into, well, it'd be subcategory actually, is to take out something like supplements because it's usually not something that we deal with. But for the most part, you're just gonna, put every category in there,
Right.
and that way we can kind of filter it once we get to the products. But you can't do that if you're niche or like you have an industry specific website or something like that. You can always filter it by category too.
Right. Average price. We were having this conversation today with somebody. Average price is a range.
Mhm.
We like to gravitate towards a little bit higher average selling prices. But that being said, you don't want to completely eliminate opportunity. So why don't we set like a minimum price of like, I don't know, $14 or
Yeah, that's what I was
something
thinking
like
too.
that,
14.
right?
Yep.
And then a maximum of, I mean, would you even say there is a maximum price? Like,
No, I mean you can pretty much leave that open because then again, like you go back into the, once this populates, like we're able to sort it, so we can sort it from high to low or low to high. I mean, I personally would like to see everything. So
right. And then, yeah, so this is average unit volume. We covered that with our
yeah,
dollars here.
yeah.
And then average price minimum of 14, average FBA sellers, 2 sellers minimum.
Yeah, usually, and the reason that we do that with two or more sellers is to ensure that one, it's not an exclusive relationship, and two, that maybe the brand isn't selling or Amazon just on the listing, um, which actually leads to the next thing, which is Amazon in stock rate. So, I mean, generally, what's our kind of take on that?
Yeah, I mean, we found opportunity with Amazon being on the listing, probably priced higher. So the biggest thing is you don't want to get on a listing that Amazon is plastered all over and they are always winning the buy box. And you can take a deeper dive on that and look at Keepa to see that. But for Smart Scout, we'll probably set about a maximum Amazon in stock rate of 10%, meaning Amazon is maybe they're in stock, they're out of stock, or maybe they're priced higher, sharing the buy box. So there is opportunity with Amazon being on the listing. There might be actually less competition from other sellers because they don't want to deal with Amazon being on the listing.
Yeah,
Um,
that's really a case by case too. You kind of have to analyze that once you're looking at the actual Keepa. Um,
yeah.
that's
And
pretty much about
generally,
it,
I
right?
mean, we'll pretty much keep everything else as it is. The only thing I might add is just from a generic standpoint, we probably won't set a brand score filter here, but we would probably just, make note of the brand score.
Mhm.
So like
And
real
then
quick,
brand score for someone that's just kind of new to Smart Scout. I mean, it's a score that they have, but you could probably explain that a little bit as far as what they're looking at for something like brand score and what that number means.
yeah. So basically, all brand score is it's just a culmination of different factors pertaining to the listing and the brand's presence on Amazon. So a brand score of a 10 means that they have a really well optimized presence, meaning their listings are great. They have A plus content. They have excellent product reviews. They're selling really well. All the great things that come with a really solid brand presence on Amazon, that would be a 10. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we have a 1. So the lower the brand score, the more opportunity there might be for you as a strategic partner, because you can come in and pitch these brands on what you can do for them. So
Mhm.
a brand that has a brand score of a 10 and qualities about the listing that resemble a 10, you have a limited value that you can pitch to them because they're already doing everything right. So they check every one of those boxes. So for me personally, I won't set this in any sort of a filter. I'll just look at it, pay attention to it, and be like, okay, this is a brand
Yeah,
score that
using
is
it as a guide, not a parameter.
right. So I think we're pretty much good to go ahead and hit our application here. So at this point, Smart Scout is going to do its thing and filter the massive database that they have. And we're just going to start getting hit with products and brands where we can see all of the columns that we selected. So we set that top cap of 200K in monthly revenue. And as we can see that is right here. We got our average selling price, our number of FBA sellers, our dominant seller. This is actually something you want to pay attention to, because when you see something like this versus this, this is telling you that it's a US-based seller. This is telling you that it is a CN, meaning a China-based seller. That's something I want to avoid, right? Because that is a Chinese seller, and it's probably like a private label Chinese product. So we're not interested in selling that. So we're, never going to, nor do we want to sell that product. It's a complete private label. So again, avoiding anything that says the CN here. We're looking for US based brands. And then, you can scroll through the rest of these and kind of just get a gauge on it. SmartScout changed around the layout a little bit.
Yeah.
The brand score here.
I was going to say, I like some of the new features. We'll see this when we go into a brand here is if you actually see that logo that is under where it just has the picture. So the thing next to the checkbox on the left-hand side. Right there. That actually just is a clickable link that pulls up the Amazon listing, which is pretty cool. Pulls up the products actually from the brand. And then you can kind of click on them, in there, which is really nice. Alternatively, just clicking on the brand itself, you're able to just go into more detail, and it actually gives you a full profile on the brand and how much it sells, etc. So,
right. So this is literally the process of what we would do as a start. And when we source, it's kind of, I would say there's two main ways we're sourcing, right? We're starting here, we're getting in SmartScout, we're finding some potential brands that are of interest. And then once we found a brand that may be of interest, we're going to do some storefront stalking, where we actually go into the seller stores, take a look at those seller stores and what they have in terms of a product assortment. Is it meeting our target criteria? And then from there, we will add those storefronts to a list, at which point, virtual assistants will source from those stores according to our SOPs. So let's look at some brands here. One thing I want to highlight is, like, if I were to break down three metrics that we are looking at, three primary metrics that we are looking at in sourcing, it's boils down to three solid things, right? So price. Number one is a price. So if we can find a product that is selling for a higher average selling price, that is ideal. Number two is volume. If we can find a product that has substantially high volume, that is also ideal. And number three is more of a qualitative factor. If we find a product or a brand that has a poor representation on Amazon, meaning the listing's not optimized, they have all kinds of issues, well, then we can come in with a strategic value pitch. And that is our third set of criteria, is poor Amazon presence. So you could have one, two, or all three of those criteria. But generally, would you say we would ever contact a brand that isn't meeting at least one of those thresholds?
Yeah, I definitely not. There has to be something that makes us want to contact them in the first place. So everything, it doesn't have to be perfect. I think that's the mistake some people make when they first start, looking at brands to contact. It doesn't have to be a perfect brand, but it has to hit some sort of criteria. And I was actually just flipped back to it. I was going to answer that question in there that we had kind of while you're looking through for brands. It just says, would you guys work with a brand that sells on Amazon and has already optimized their listing? I'm an FBA seller and they are an FBM seller, right? So, the answer to that is yes. And that's on the basis of they're selling FBM, right? So if you are competitive with them at the same price, you are most likely going to get the buy box all of the time or most of the time. If they are an FBM seller and you're FBA. And there's always, something like that. It kind of leads me to think that they're open to things such as, they're not really prepared to deal with the logistics of Amazon. And so it might be a situation where you can come in and provide value, in terms of that.
Right. Exactly. So as Brandon was answering the question there, I was just clicking on a few brands, and I really want to, tell people about like what was the thought process for why I clicked on a couple of these brands. So this one I just clicked on, I looked at this as a low brand score, right? So it kind of piqued my interest. I wanted to just check it out. The other one that I clicked on was this one, again, another low brand score with a discrepancy of revenue, high revenue, low brand score. Again, same sort of deal here, right? So this is a common theme. What are we looking for? High revenue, high either dollars, high ASP, or high volume, coupled with poor representation on Amazon. So why don't we, just pull up a couple of these listings here. So I have some products up here that we can take a look at. Why don't we look at this first?
It's also a category that we happen to like. If you guys don't sell in the grocery and gourmet, there's little to no returns. So definitely a good category to sell in. Also, kind of interesting here what we got going on. I don't know if you noticed that the pictures are. That's good.
That's quite the assortment of pictures there. It really gives me a.
Yeah, it kind of tells me the difference, between every.
Yeah.
Every angle of the product.
Yeah, I love the ingredients too. What are your first, I mean, we're kind of talking through that already, but like what is a couple first knee-jerk reactions where you're like, all right, is this good? Is this bad? Is it a winning brand? Why? Those kinds of things.
Yeah. So all of these sorts of I don't know what you call them, observations, I guess, are made within a couple seconds of clicking on a listing. And, we've done this so much that it's pretty much knee-jerk reaction. But, when you're doing this at first, it might take you a little longer, but eventually you get to the point where you can make an assumption about a listing and about a brand based on just seeing it. So first thing that I noticed here, my eyes are going towards the pictures, which, as we can see, are absolutely phenomenal. They have 6 of the same exact picture with no information on it whatsoever, right? So that's kind of a weak point. We can already assume that, there's not really a monitoring of a listing. We also see that it's just a basic title. We can see that one thing I noticed, it says the occasion of the product is a wedding anniversary and Valentine's Day, which is a little interesting to me. On the on the basis of I don't know, maybe this is like a popular wedding present, but I have a feeling it's not. I have a feeling it's just a detail issue on the page. And I see that they have a store, a brand store, and I can see that because it's saying visit and then the brand's name and store. If they didn't have a brand store, then it would just say brand and then the brand name. What that's telling me is they have registry of their brand. So it looks like the brand is registered, because you cannot have a brand store without registering the brand, which basically means they have some sort of, interest, or at least have looked into Amazon a little bit before, but it's not being monitored. And then, if we scroll down to Keepa, we can see that there's some pricing fluctuations, and we can tell that by the pink line. Being all over the place, sporadic pricing fluctuations, as well as Amazon is now on the listing in the last couple of months on the basis of there is a yellow line there. Amazon's also not competitive because that yellow line is higher than the pink line, which is the buy box. So again, using that as ammunition for contacting the brand, their pricing is kind of all over the place. So something to keep in mind, as well as it looks like there is a ton of sellers on the listing. So they might be getting rogue sellers from other places like distributors. And then we scroll down to the bottom, and then we can see if there's A+ content, which there is none. Which A+ content is content that the brand, again, can only do if they have a brand store. I'm sorry, if they have brand registry. So a brand store and A+ content are under brand registry, which would go here in the product description. It would be a bunch of images and pictures that convey, the message of the brand. And again, we can see they don't have any of that. So the consensus of all that is basically a lack of brand management. Now, obviously we took some time to look through that, but the reality of that is that would have happened in 10 seconds, that analysis. But we're going to use that in determining whether to add that company to our spreadsheet to contact them or not.
Right. So one other thing I want to just check on is the reviews are not very good. So let's just take a quick peek at this. And let's just see. Well, I was curious if the reviews spoke to the quality of the delivery of the product, which would tell you that proper quality control is not being taken by existing Amazon sellers. If they like arrived broken, or if they arrived, well, in this case, somebody's saying that they arrived stale. So again, could be poor quality control from the existing sellers. Might be some more ammunition that I can use with the brand and say, hey, clean up your, you know, in the pitch, let's clean up your Amazon presence
Mhm.
because your customers are not happy with what is being delivered to them, and it's poorly reflecting on the brand as a whole.
Mhm.
And that doesn't just affect Amazon, that affects their entire brand. So these are big things that a brand cares about. Now, all of the things that you just spoke about, again, this ties back into the three main things that we're looking at. So price, volume, underrepresentation. And this hits on two of the three. Two of the three are volume and underrepresentation. It's not hitting on the price because the price is low. Price is right now at 11 and change in the buy box.
Right.
Might it go up at certain points? Yes, but that is what's considered a low average selling price. So we're going to be making a small amount of dollars per unit, maybe two, three, maybe dollars per unit. Three, you're doing great on an $11 product, but you're probably making two,
Yeah.
if not maybe even a little bit lower,
Probably a
right?
little bit lower, I would guess.
Yeah. And so because of that, we need to make up for that in the amount of units that we move. And we can see just this listing in and of itself, over 1,000 have bought in the past month. I could go back to the other page and
Yeah.
see multiple different listings. So the volume is there, the price is not, and the underrepresentation is
Mhm.
also there.
Yeah, and that's
So,
a range between 1,000 to 2,000 usually. It'll jump to 2K plus bought in the last month after it hits 2,000. Also, Brad, I mean, your audio is totally good. Your camera is off. I don't know if you want to switch or if you want to just continue like this, whatever you want to do.
oh, really? Let me
Yeah.
take a peek at that, see if I can get that going.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so just relating to like while you're fixing that, right? Relating to the the average selling price of a product, right? Like I always say, we pay bills in dollars, not in margin. So when it comes to a lower priced product like that, you have to have an inverse relationship between the volume that it moves, like Brad was saying, as well as the price of the product. So if we're going into something and the product sells for $100 and you're making a 20% ROI off of that, well, that's a lot better than a 20% ROI off a product that sells for $10, right? So it's all things that we take into consideration when we are reaching out to brands. The juice has to be worth the squeeze, as we say. And so it's just another criteria, another one of those three criteria that we mentioned, relating to presentation, volume, and price, that affects whether we'll reach out to a brand, as well as how much that we will pursue them. So when it comes to outreach strategy and things of that nature, we are actively pursuing brands, one, based on the response that we receive from them, like the tonality and things of that nature, as well as the caliber of the account. So super important when it comes to just the outreach strategy, because once we reach out, we have to determine how long we're going to reach out for, and what that's going to look like. So just relating to the pricing of the product. But
Right. So I had to switch cameras there because I went dead. Okay, so let's jump back into that screen share here. Um, you want to answer that question there?
yeah.
Real
I
quick?
mean, it was the follow up on the question. For the brand that's already selling themselves on Amazon, they're selling FBM, and it just says, more of a kind of an observation saying that the brand hasn't made a sale in the last 4 days. I feel bad. What should I do? Well, I mean, I think that you have to look at it from a perspective of the brand's sales on Amazon. Like if you're looking to become a seller, you're going to have to either share that buy box with other sellers, or you are going to have to, make up for all the sales. And if the product isn't selling, then it might not be something for you to pursue. So kind of taking back what I was saying on that first part of your question, which is that if you have a brand that's not really selling, not much of a point reaching out, right? Because it has to be worth it for you, obviously, as well. And feeling bad, I don't think that's something that is relevant to you necessarily as a seller. It's not your responsibility to create this demand for their brand if it's not there to begin with. So we talk brand partnership, we talk about increasing sales and doing things like that. It's all well and good, but they have to have organic demand. So definitely don't feel bad. Don't put it on yourself. I think if you did that, there'd be a lot of brands on Amazon that you'd feel bad about.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So why don't we jump into another product here? We got a few products up here, so let's look at one or two of them, and then we'll fire it off for some last minute questions. So we got a brand here that, according to SmartScout, is doing. Let's see, what did SmartScout said they were doing almost $200,000 a month in sales. So let's look at what their listings look like. I'm just going to open up this one first here. And it looks like they are decent. Would you say so?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely some. What are we doing there? We're picking our nose with that.
Yeah.
What is this thing? It's an inhaler.
Yeah, it's a sinus infection thing.
It was like a way to get up there more,
Yeah.
Well, obviously, I mean, there is some sort of map. We can see that minimum advertised pricing, which basically is just saying that it's the cheapest price you can sell the product for, as set by the manufacturer or the brand. Looks like there was some breaking of that map, and we can see that by the purple or pinkish line for the buy box kind of fluctuating on it. But yeah, I mean, they're okay. They have a somewhat. They could be improved a little bit, but they have a decent presence. This kind of is middle of the road for me. I can tell that by the title, by the product description, lack thereof.
Yeah. They a lot of their listings don't have A+ content either. So I think there could be opportunity here. Looks like they got kind of an influx of sellers going on, so price a little bit all over the place here. So, this is one that might be a good opportunity. It's like you said, middle of the road type deal, where sells really well. So it's certainly worth a reach out. Again, we're hitting that lower selling price range. But it's a consumer good, so it's going to sell like crazy. It's a replenishable. People order it again and again and again. So this is an example of a brand that I would certainly reach out to.
Yeah. And, keeping in mind, like, it's not hitting all the criteria necessarily. Because, if I was going to say if this is optimized or not, I'd say it's decently optimized, right? Like, there's obviously things that can be improved. But, if you're to look at this from a perspective of the listing has to be not optimized, you might skip this. And that would not be, I don't think, the correct move. So honestly, if we wanted to, we talked about outreach strategy a little bit. If we want to use this and that other listing maybe and kind of compare, what the approach might be for reaching out to these brands, I think that would be pretty beneficial.
Yeah, which listing?
We could do this, and then we could maybe do that other brand that we were just on.
All right, let's see.
Because, there's different approaches, obviously. I mean, if not, we can't find it, then we can just do, there it is. Cool. So, I mean, we could do it like a kind of a compare and contrast. I don't know if you want to close out of those other ones. And we can kind of look at the two and see, what the approach would be, if it would be the same, if it would be different. What would you say as far as these brands reaching out?
Well, when we reach out to a brand, it looks exactly the same in the first opening lines, so
every time.
That's just, we got to clear the air. We got to, be very direct and tell them why we're calling. You're doing a cold call. So the last thing you want to do is like start selling in the first sentence or just like ramble on. So like you want to be very direct in what you want, and why you're calling. So our call will start the same every time, where we, state the name of our company, we state where we're located, and we say that we're interested in opening a wholesale account. And then right away, we ask if we are speaking with the right person for that. Why? Because I don't want to have a in-depth conversation with a non-decision maker at the company. So first thing we'll do is we'll validate that we're speaking with the right person. And if so, then we will begin to proceed to tell them more about our company, what we do, really within 2 to 3 sentences. And then we will say, that we are an e-commerce company. We are on Amazon. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you're handling that space? Because that, at the end of the day, that question opens up the dialogue. It allows the conversation to go in many, many different directions. And that's one of the biggest things we always preach is asking calibrated questions is one of the best way to close brand accounts, because you are putting the ball in their court and allowing them to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. I just was laughing because I'm looking at this listing, and the seemingly second bullet point has nothing to do with anything and says, and you can tuck the hanky into your pillowcase at night for soothing nighttime congestion relief to aid restful sleep. So not really, I don't know, that just
I
not
don't
really
even know
sure
what
on that
that
one.
means.
Yeah, I'm not really sure because I was trying to like make sense of it based on the sentence before it, and I'm not really drop the handkerchief. Yeah, I don't know. So maybe some stuff to be improved there as well in the bullet points. But John is actually asking over in the chat over there, said, do you guys still storefront stock? Doesn't SmartScout already show all the brands?
Oh yeah, we'll still do a deep dive in storefront stocking. Well, at this point, our virtual assistants do it, but that's like the, uh, you know, overarching concept of what we're doing is we're always storefront stocking to go, do a deeper dive. We're always adding new stores to potentially source from, so that is definitely a sourcing method that we're using daily.
Yeah, I mean, if you were going to do one for the rest of your life, I would actually probably do storefront stocking over SmartScout. SmartScout just makes it way more convenient, but storefront stocking is really like you're in the trenches type of deal.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going straight to the source there. And with storefront stocking, is the nice part is like it's just a never-ending rabbit hole, So you find one store, you open up a product, you look at the product, this meets your criteria. You look at other sellers that are selling the product, and then they're selling products that are meeting the same criteria, and you're like, wow, this never ends. And that, I think, is really just kind of tying all this together. That is the biggest thing. Is that one of the biggest things is that the rabbit hole never ends.
Never.
There's so many brands, thousands and thousands of brands out there. It's an infinitely scalable business model, and you're only limited by your time. If we spent every waking moment contacting new brands, for the rest of our lives, you'd never reach the end. Just because there's so many brands out there. So the opportunity is, it's all there.
Yeah, you're going to run out of money way before you run out of brands.
Oh yeah,
it's a good problem to have, but it's a very abundant, business model.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, so like ending it on that note, maybe like you're gonna run out of money before you run out of brands. When you first start selling on Amazon, your biggest hurdle is going to be finding the winning products and the winning brands, because you don't have the skill set to support, being able to identify these things quickly. But as you grow and scale and you work in your business, for months and years, you will, your skill set will greatly improve.
Right.
And the byproduct of that is finding brands and winning products at a much faster rate, and your capital can't keep up with it. So it's like, first of all, how much capital do you need to start in Amazon wholesale?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you need a lot less than, people say you need, but I think it's also dependent on your life situation. If you're relying on something like wholesale for a living, then, you don't have another source of income. It's really difficult because it's a delayed gratification business model. It takes a while to build up. But, if you're not relying on it like that, and you're just able to invest a couple $1,000s, we like to say between 3 to 5K. Anything more than that, I don't think you necessarily need, because you're learning from your experiences and then you're reinvesting your money and you're building organically. Like, don't make a ton of mistakes with a ton of money at the beginning. It's not conducive to success. Like, just having a smaller organic amount of capital and being able to take more time to learn the craft and learn the process, I think you're going to do a lot better than just dumping like 40, 50K in to a product that might not sell.
Oh yeah.
You don't know what you don't know. You know what I mean?
Without a doubt, you're way better off scaling slower and organically. I want to hit on this question here from Salah on Instagram saying, guys, if there are some products that are ungated, can we sell them without any approval? So maybe touch on ungating, kind of how that works.
Yeah, I think the word "can" is the key to this, right? So that sentence, you can, should you? Probably not, right? Like that's the whole thing. And whether you're doing a model like arbitrage, or, if you're doing your favorite word, glorified arbitrage, which is, buying products from maybe a distributor or something that you're not authorized, you can do it until you get caught and someone puts the hammer down, right? So you're always running a greater risk if you're not authorized by the distributor, and especially if you're not authorized by the brand. So, there's plenty of, if you have a Twitter account or you are involved in the community, you'll see every other day a Section 3 or something like that where someone gets banned over a product. So, we're focused on being in it for the long haul and having a sustainable business model to grow. And you do that by being authorized by the brands. So you can. Do we recommend it? Probably not.
Yep. And the other side to that ungating question is, like, when you first create your Amazon selling account, you are going to be gated by Amazon in everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to seem like, how does anybody make money doing this business model? Because I can't sell anything. I'm not approved to sell anything. Well, if you're doing arbitrage, retail or online arbitrage, there are ways to get ungated through different retailers and getting invoices and receipts from those retailers. The better way to get ungated and the faster, more secure way of getting ungated is to do Amazon Wholesale. The reason for that is because when Amazon prompts you and you go to click apply to sell this product, and Amazon prompts you for an invoice, they're going to want probably a lot of units on that invoice, and they're expanding that number as we see.
Yep. I've seen all the we've seen all the memes and different things of like
they want 1 million units.
Yeah.
So by doing Amazon Wholesale, you're already jumping the gun and accelerating yourself past this arbitrage model, which, I guess an explanation of that is for another day, but you're really just propelling yourself forward past arbitrage, which should merely be a stepping stone. Arbitrage. Like, I would never tell anybody to stay in arbitrage, get in arbitrage and stay in arbitrage. I would say get in arbitrage and get out as fast as possible. Learn the ropes, use arbitrage to understand the logistics, start with limited capital, learn how to find a profitable product and sell it on Amazon, scale that up a little bit, and then transition into wholesale. The beautiful part about wholesale is that you get the invoices, you get any documents that you need if you are directly authorized by the brand and you're reaching out to the brand, or if you're working with an authorized distributor, they will gladly give you the invoice for the units that you purchased. And then if that distributor is in fact authorized by the brand, or if you're buying directly from the brand, you take that invoice, you upload it to Amazon, and your chances of getting ungated in that product have just shot up 90%.
Yeah, if ungating is the issue you're dealing with, consider going to wholesale. It is the way out of ungating, which is a common issue, especially today. I mean, when we started, things were not gated and restricted the way they are now. And I sound like an old guy saying that, but like, it's true. Like the landscape has changed, right? And it's just becoming an increasingly difficult thing for new sellers. And wholesale is still the best solution, in my opinion, out of arbitrage gating.
Right. Yeah. So, that's it, man. Like the best, like wholesale is such a great model is because you bypass all that those pain points that we just described with arbitrage, but you're also not reinventing the wheel and creating your own brand and putting 10, 20,000 into a product that might succeed, right? The natural state of progression as like an Amazon seller, it seems time and time again, is start an arbitrage, scale it up a little bit, learn the ropes, become really good at reading Keepa, making buying decisions, doing product research, and then level your way up to wholesale, where maybe you're buying from authorized distributors, or even better, you're buying directly from brands. And then once you've built out brand exclusivity and you've done these things from a marketing standpoint on Amazon, and you've worked with these brands for some time, then, maybe you start to pivot and work like unilaterally into like private label or something. So rather than jumping into private label right away, I think that's a much better approach. And brand direct wholesale is no different. We're selling name brand products that already exist on Amazon. Customers already know, like, and trust them. So you don't have to it takes out a lot of the risk.
Yeah, most definitely. Guys, we go live every single Wednesday for Wholesale Wednesday. Q&As, we do some sourcing like we did today. And so, make sure to tune in and share this content with another Amazon seller or entrepreneur. It could definitely scale their business. And we just appreciate you guys for tuning in, asking questions, and hopefully kind of give you some valuable information on sourcing brands.
Peace out, guys. We'll see you next time.
Week.